are listening to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast, a place to empower women of color in the music business.
Welcome back to another episode of Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. This is your host, Janisha Jones, back with another special guest. Today we have Chlon Henry. Chlon is a multi-hyphenate music executive, business manager, author, film producer, CEO of Checkmate Biz Management, and now also digital distribution CEO of Wealth Media. I am so excited to have Chlon here. We're both advocates for women of color in the music industry. She just exudes big boss energy, so I knew I had to have her on the show. So without further ado, welcome Chlon to Pub Royalty Queen Podcast. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm amazing. How are you?
I'm doing good, busy as ever, but with all God's blessings, everything will be just fine.
Exactly that. Amen to that.
I'm so excited to have you because I feel like we just have so much in common. We're both on the back end of operations in these music companies, and I think you just have a wealth of knowledge that you can share to people aspiring to be in the music industry and coming from your own experience and sharing your own journey as a woman of color and those challenges. They could really help people to enter into this business and find their voice. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for I appreciate it.
No problem. So let's just go ahead and dive right in. Why don't you tell us about your journey into the music industry and what roles led you to becoming CEO of your own music conglomerate?
Well, so my journey into the music industry started in promotions. So I started working out with a small team. I was still in school. We were doing promotions and we were having parties. Now, I was in school for accounting at the time. I do have my master's in accounting and financial management. So I was in undergrad working on my bachelor in accounting. And so I would always handle the money and a lot of the planning, like creating the spreadsheets and, the operations, how it would go at the door and cashier money drops and things like that. And so we would book artists. I would even also be a part of the contractual process because I was in school for business. And so it kind of worked where everybody was doing what they were in school for at the time. Like we had people who were in school for marketing, and so they were working on the marketing and promotion side, but we still multitask because we had such a small team. So even I would still be out helping pass out flyers, would be still working on creative designs and planning and things like that. And so that's kind of how we started. So kind of like a booking / promotions company. And we transitioned into a record label when we got our first big deal, because prior to that, the company was working with artists, but we didn't know anything about the music business and we hadn't got our big break yet. So we weren't really in there. Because, there are a lot of people that are just trying to get into the music business and they're rapping, they're in the studio recording, but you don't necessarily really learn music business until you're in it.
That's true.
So our first big deal was with Trinidad James in 2012. We did a multi-million-dollar JV with Def Jam.
Wow.
And so we were on the creative side, but we learned really quickly that, oh my gosh, like music has a business.
Yeah.
We went through a whole lot of trial and error trying to learn a lot of things because we didn't really know the music business. We didn't have mentors and no one to kind of tell us. So we went through a lot of different conflicting things because we didn't understand the business. And there was a lot of money coming in for the music, and you have contracts, you have, you got producer agreements, you have featured artist agreements, you have, your record deals that you honor, then you have publishing. It's so many different things, and all these different things are its own business in itself that we had to learn. And so as I was working in the business, because I was working on business and operations, I began to see other professionals that were accountants in the business. And I realized that they were being called business managers, a lot of them, and they were working with their own individual clients. So I'm like, And even in working with some of them, I was like, I felt like I care a lot more about the people that I work with. And not only that, I didn't feel like they were as detail oriented as I was. So in seeing them doing it at the level of success that they were, I was like, if they can do this, I can do this.
Amen.
And so, yes. And so I launched my own company, and then I had my own clients, and it did really, really well. I shot a short film. It was called Balling on a Budget. And the company that I started with, the record label, asked me to come back as COO. And so what I did was, yeah. And so I was like, that was a great opportunity for me. And I felt like it was like home because that's the first brand that I was kind of connected to. And we still collaborated in business together, even when I launched my own company. And so I went back. So I scaled down on my clients, my business on the business management side. And I was like, you know what? It's so time consuming. I wanted to do more products anyway. We could make money in our sleep because in the music business, it's a labor business, like it's very time consuming. And so I wanted to figure out how I can make more money, but spend less time. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm this business, a product based business. I'm seeing all these guys and even music executives coming into the business, not knowing anything and having to learn the hard way. And I already did that. So why not share my experience and information with others to help them along the way? And so that's how I ended up being the CEO of the label. We learned even in that process after years of working with the record label that you have to really like date artists before you sign them because you don't necessarily you're getting into business with until you are already in business. And so felt like would be a great way to do that would be distribution because we could do distribution deals with artists, date them, figure out what their work ethic is and what it feels like to work with them and even monitor their stream activity to see if it will be something that we'd like to upstream into a record deal. Because once you get into a record deal with these artists, you have an obligation to them like they have to you. And so, I was appointed CEO of the distribution company, and that's where we are with that right now.
I love it. First of all, there's not too many Black women in distribution, like at least launching their own distribution companies. So
you many stories about all of the meetings, what the meetings feel like.
Exactly. Yeah, let's talk about it because that's one of the things that we both have in common. We're entrepreneurs, we're women, and we're women of color. So you're having to also deal with the egoistic, it's just a very egotistic type of industry that we're in, but then also having to over produce and over explain and over compensate for everything, even though we tend to be like, we're the culture creators of the world. We're the ones that,
right.
We offer even more just showing up in the room, I think. But yeah, let's talk about your experience moving in those spaces.
Well, I have a really strong personality anyway. I don't back down easily. And I really stand strong on my belief, what I believe in, and what I know that for us in this industry, we have to really, really earn our respect. We have 10 times harder than everybody else. And then when you're a woman in a position of power, you still have that conflict of interest where men may not want to listen to you or they may not want to take direction from you because you're a woman, no matter if you have the experience or not. But there are some men that understand the value and they're very mature and understand the value and they're very open to it. As a matter of fact, they're very much inclined to putting women in position of power because they know what we're capable of. So I can say that. I don't want to say too many bad things about that without acknowledging that there are some men in the business that really understand that power. So my experience
is definitely important. No, I was just saying that's definitely important to note. Yeah, not everybody fits that monolith that you're not supporting of us or they see us as less than or anything like that. So absolutely.
Yeah, if you look at the helm of a lot of these successful labels and entities, like there are women at the helm of it.
Yeah.
There are women in these executive positions in these executive seats now. Like that is changing a lot because anyone who truly wants to be successful are going to recognize talent no matter whether you're male or female.
That's right.
People are seeing that we work really hard.
Yes, we're some of the most resourceful people. We are the ones that are like, give us lemons and we'll make lemonade. Like, we're just known for having that resilience and that work ethic, to the detriment of us. So, those sometimes, and one of the things the stress is like, it's great to be resilient and it's great to know how to persevere through things. but being labeled strong all the time puts that like negative, that pressure on us to bottle everything inside and just take it all, with a grain of salt. But we're human beings. We're human beings. Like we have struggles, we have pain, we have, the things that we need to ask for help. That's very hard for us, I feel like, to ask for help when we need it,
Right.
But it's good to have, I think sisterhood is really important in this industry. And you and I are part of a generation. We are advocating for each other and we are lifting each other up and saying each other's names in spaces where I feel like, the older generation having to deal with the bottlenecking of the industry,
Right.
especially at the top senior leadership positions, having to kind of compete against each other. I feel like that's kind of like dying down now a little bit more. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Myself, I'm actually, as I am hiring, I don't want this to sound like a bad thing, but I've hired a lot of women,
Yeah.
you know, and even like, and especially too, because they're very like in hot, what I want to do is put seasoned people in high level positions and then bring in younger people with fresh
Yeah.
ideas, fresh talent, people who are hungry. Because once women get older, we start having families and obligations. And this industry is very consuming, like we spoke about. And there aren't any clock in, clock out hours.
That's right. It's a 24-hour job.
4 hour job. It never stops. And so I definitely agree with you. Definitely looking forward to hiring more women and putting women in other leadership positions. And to what you were saying about just always having to be strong, I get that, because it's like even when we feel some type of way because we're labeled as strong and we're expected to be strong because everybody leans on us, we may not say how, but it's like vulnerability is a skill that a true leader has to possess.
That's
Like
right.
and so that's something that me as a leader, because I know what I want to accomplish and what I want to be able to pour into others as a part of my legacy. I know that I have to be able to possess that. So that's another thing that I've been diligently working on through therapy, with trying to be more vulnerable, because I'm very, very strong. Like I have, like, my heart is big and huge, but
Yeah.
there's like a shell around it. You know what I mean? Like you have to really know me to know, like, she has a big heart. Other than that, you catch me in the conference room, I might be a little stiff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we got to put on our
Game face.
masculine hats when we're in the boardroom, we're doing our negotiations and having to tell people how to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
That softness kind of takes a back seat when we're having to be in those positions. But I also think that's part of our power as women as well, to show that vulnerability without having to be ultra masculine as well. So
Right.
there's a balance, I think. This industry can take advantage of the softness though, so I get it. I
Yeah.
get
Gotta balance.
yeah, yes, exactly. But
So
so no,
I
I love the fact that you were talking about the educational side of the industry as well, and that being something that you really focus on, because one of the things that I realize now, also 10 years into the game, is that the reason why artists are being taken advantage of is because there's a lack of knowledge about the industry. It's because they just don't know the inner workings. And so they're relying on people, to have their best interests, but this is a business, right? So
yeah, exactly.
so tell me about like what made you pursue like advocating for the artists and really educating them on the business operations.
I mean, just for me being a business manager and working with our artists and seeing the lack of knowledge just in them alone. Because so I've worked on the label side and also on the artist side. On the artist side, as a business manager, I've seen how they don't understand the information that comes from the label.
Mm.
And but it's like you have to understand these things because you're in a partnership or in a business with them. And you can't thrive in a business in which you don't understand. And
Right.
so because there are so many different parts of the business, it can be very, very difficult, but you have to really take your time and at least try to understand the basics so you have enough knowledge to ask the right questions.
That's right.
I really need to, like, I've had clients who started with me and didn't even know what an invoice was,
Oh man.
you
Oh
know,
man.
all the way down to that layer. And, some things that are common sense to us, it's not common sense to everybody.
Right.
That's the reality.
Exactly.
So I was like, I'm going to start sharing, I'm not doing anyone any justice by learning these things and not sharing what I've learned when I know that people really don't know these things at all.
Mm-hmm.
And
empowering them.
I'm
Sorry.
still I'm learning new all the time.
Facts. Yeah, this industry is changing like rapidly, especially like heading into the digital arena, the virtual world. It's like we're having to learn along the way as well as executives, and then have the time to teach other people about how to empower themselves and how to be their own business entity, relying on us to make those things happen, but also being very cognizant of what is actually the strategy and how to move forward. That's the artist development side of this.
Right.
So you empower them to know what the strategy is, but then also reinforce a level of trust that they can say, okay, I know that you know how to enforce these things, so I'm going to trust you to go ahead and do that while I'm, working on my craft. A lot of artists, they feel like it's a skipping steps. They're paying for social media following. They're getting their friend is touring, and so they get, by way of the relationship with their friend who's touring,
Right.
get on there, and then all of a sudden, quickly they get just an audience, but not all of their audience is a fan base, right? So it's not really translating.
Yeah, it doesn't. I think that's the part that everybody doesn't understand, like the art of translation, because they feel like, you could spend all of this money even on ad dollars or even influencers, but if you're not paying attention to the analytics to know what to retarget and to know where to direct the majority of your marketing dollars to get the maximum impact, then you're doing it for. And
Exactly.
so I think that a lot of people don't understand that translation, because it's like something can be going viral also, but just because viral doesn't mean it's translating into streams.
Exactly.
There it's levels to it. You know what I
Hard.
mean?
That's
So
fact. No, I feel like we could definitely do like we should. I know that you do lessons already. I watch you. I peep your Instagram post, and I'm like, yeah, she's really dropping some major gems for people. I hope they listen out there because
well,
you
I'm
know
working on things. I'm dropping some things soon. So building up, shooting more content and posting more content to build a lot of momentum. I think I'm being shadow banned on Instagram right now because, like, as a hobby, I go to firearm training. And so
Oh.
video training. Yeah, they muted my audio, but they didn't take it down because it wasn't against community guidelines because I was at firearm training. But you can
Right.
hear shooting and you can hear the firearm, the cocking of it and stuff like that. And so they muted it. And then yeah, I've been shadow banned for a little while,
Oh
right?
man.
Yeah.
You're trying to teach people how to survive out here,
Hey.
how to protect themselves. It's messed
All the way
up.
around, just trying to be very thorough with it. So, but I'm doing some really cool things like right now. So, what I'm doing is kind of like an experiment too, because I have the distribution company now, and so I have a book that's out, and
Talk
so
about
I'm
it.
doing Music Money. The book is called Music Money, and I'm actually going to do a Music Money 2.0 because since I wrote that book 2 years ago, I've learned a whole lot more because now I'm other side of the business. Like, granted, one day I might launch a DSP and then I'm on that side of the business and then I'm learning everything all the way back to the core.
Yes.
But when I'm doing an audio version of my book, but I'm not going to release it as the traditional version of like an audio. I'm going to release it like an album. Each chapter will be a track. And so it's doing that so that I can generate revenue the way music generates revenue.
Look at you, Miss Creative Strategy over
I was
here.
like, let me
you.
out and my Sound Exchange and release me an album, but it's gonna be an audio.
That's fine.
But it's educated. But it'll be me using the music business model for a book, for an audio book.
Very creative.
Yeah.
Let me know if you need any help with that because, we have similar backgrounds. I started in music publishing, royalty and copyright administration, handling most of the mechanical licensing for E1. Now I'm at Empire. Well, I was at Cobalt as well in sync licensing. But now I'm at Empire building the publishing infrastructure from scratch.
Cobalt, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Trinidad James was signed as a writer, I believe.
Yeah, he's still under our publishing company. So we have a deal with Cobalt, and then all of our songwriters are through Cobalt through our company.
Yeah, girl. I was over there in the sync department handling about a third of the business income from the
A third
Canadian and Latin American territories. So,
we have offline. We got to get on.
I didn't wear green for nothing. You know what I mean? I knew who I was coming to talk to today.
Got to link up for sure. For sure.
We got so much to catch up on, in general. I feel like we have businesses that align with each other's mission. So we should just, collaborate and support each other in that way as well. But back to this, trying to inspire these women out here. What would you say was your mama I made it moment? And what characteristics do you attribute to reaching that point?
I don't think I've reached the mama I've made it moment yet. I haven't gotten that mama I made it moment yet, because I feel like there's so many things that I'd like to, I guess, be acknowledged for in the music business. And I think a lot of women that work on the independent side of the business don't get as much acknowledgement as the music executives that work at the major labels, although we do a lot of the work, if not more, because I've worked labels, and it's so different, because from an independent structure from where I started, we built our processes and systems from the ground up. I've never worked in everything I've been a part of, we've actually had to build it. We don't have days off for real. You know what I mean?
Girl, you talking to the choir. You're preaching to the choir right now.
So there are certain things that I want to be able to accomplish and be recognized for in the music business. So I don't feel like I've had my mama I made it moment yet.
I hear you. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing all of the success that comes from all of your hard work. I'm looking forward to giving you a rose. I'm giving you your flowers now, even, because I see what you're doing out here. It's not going unnoticed. And part of the reason for having this podcast is because I feel like, to your point, we do so much work. We're doing so much groundwork. We're doing so much of the hand holding, the relationship building, the creative pursuits out here that go unnoticed. And so this is a platform to really say, look, I see you out here shining, sis. I see you out here shining,
Appreciate it.
Of course. Of course. So what advice would you give a woman of color coming into the music industry?
Well, first and foremost, I would just say, always stand in, your strength as a woman. Like, you can't, like, for the most part, we may be, what term am I looking for? Assertive. And so being called the B word if we're being assertive. And, sometimes we take offense to that. What I would say to that is, because that's just going to happen, especially when you're a woman and a woman of color in a position of power. Like, stand in your position of power and don't worry about what anyone is saying. Just focus on accomplishing your goals and achieving your success, because they're going to have to give you that respect once you achieve your goals, because what they can't take away from you is what you've done and what you know. So what they have to say about you, what you may have done, or how you may have been judged, they cannot take away from the fact that you put up numbers and you do what you came to do. You know what I mean? I will also just stay tunnel vision and stay focused aside all the other things that are going on around you, because those are some of the things that just comes with the nature of the business.
These are facts. I love that. Yeah. The work speaks for itself at the end of the day,
Hey, and that's all that matters, is at the end of the day, what are we talking about? Look, I really did that. What are we talking about?
You're competing against yourself too at the same time. Like, this industry has a way of making you think that you have to look at the person next to you and compare what you're doing to them. But everyone has something unique and special about them, a skill that only they can do. And it's just about harnessing that, really focusing on your energy on those things and creating your own lane.
Absolutely.
So if you could have done anything differently, what would that have been?
I think that, let me see what I would have done differently. I probably would have released products a lot sooner. I would have done it when I was at the height of my personal company, so that I could have aligned a lot of those products with the clients that I was working with at the time. And so
Yeah,
if
so you can benefit from the work that you're doing for other people as
that
well.
and also like tap into the influence that they have. And so I would have, but sometimes you're so caught up in doing everything for everybody else that you're not thinking about what should be done for yourself.
These are
And
facts.
tend to overextend, ourselves for others and not for ourselves. So
Ooh,
that's
that's
what,
a word.
yeah.
Man, that is because I feel like that really spoke to me just now because I feel like what we're taught to do is just do for everyone else. And then we don't even have the time to really sit with what it is that we need. And again, back to that aspect of asking for help or asking for what you want. It's like the afterthought. Oh
Right.
shit, like, I should have really considered
Exactly.
what would benefit me, you know? And, I got to admit, coming up in the industry, I'm making all of these connections and I know some very powerful people, but I've always been the type that's like, I don't want to ask for help because I don't want them to think I owe them something.
I
So
understand.
I'm going into this world a lot harder than I need to because
Right.
of the matter is everybody needs help. Everybody asks for help. Everyone does. And so it's just a matter of knowing what it is that you want, not necessarily always coming with your hand out, but like, hey, I can do this thing for you. What can you do for me? That kind of thing is definitely a way to like leverage your skills and your talents to get where you need to be as well. I feel like that's something I wish someone had
So
told me earlier on.
I have
Like,
to second. Yeah, that's probably another thing I would have done differently too, even with the relationships that I've acquired. I would have actually probably done a better job in nurturing those relationships.
yeah, because
Yeah.
it's a relationship game.
Yes. Not what you know, is who you know.
These are facts.
But when you get at that round table, if you don't know, everybody gonna know you don't know. So what you know is going to become important.
Exactly. So,
you
but
know.
asking questions is just as important too. Like when you don't know something, that's okay. But know your place, know what you bring to the table, but know what your weaknesses are as well.
Absolutely. And being okay with saying I don't know.
So, what are some common misconceptions people have about women of color in the music industry?
The one that I just spoke to you about the B word, you know what I mean? We have attitudes and rude and which I think that's just that assertive attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not even being rude because I've seen men come in the room, beat on the table, yell and curse at
Mm-hmm.
everybody. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
says anything about it.
Exactly.
Not called anything. He's not called rude. He's not called mean. But if a woman does that, oh my gosh, the roof gets blown off. You know what I mean?
Facts.
And so I think, and then also, about women of color in the music business, like women just not sticking together, not working together,
Mm-hmm.
supportive of one another is another stigma about women of color in the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think that probably just come from, a lot of us, we just don't know each other.
These are facts. We
And
operate
so,
in silos out
yeah,
here, so it can be very cliquish, especially if you're someone that's on the operational side. You're not next to the artist all the time. So
right.
it's that
Yeah.
disconnect.
Right. You're not on the front end of things, but you're handling some of the most important part of the business. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And so look at differently because, like you said, you're not on the front
front
side of
physically.
the right
Hmm.
now.
So that was a major key. What ways can women of color advocate for each other, and how do you advocate for women of color in the music industry?
Well, within the music industry, I think like right now, I'm just now beginning to be more confident in myself in my role. I mean, like you said, like there aren't many of us. I work on the operational side of the business, so I'm not on the front end
Mm-hmm.
next to the artist, and so we're not being acknowledged or represented as much. But now I'm very comfortable with my role, comfortable with who I am, comfortable with what I know, comfortable, with my level of experience. And so now, right now, I'm ready to advocate. So I'm hiring a lot of young Black women, but also even trying to teach them how to thrive in this business.
Yeah,
Gen Z is different from millennials.
these are
You know,
facts.
They have, their idea of work ethic is a lot different than ours. So just teaching them about, because this industry you have to be built for is not for
Yeah.
everybody. I try to advocate for my team within myself by just giving them like a lot of information on my experiences, letting them know, even sharing information with them, even if it's not something that's specific to their role, just giving them some knowledge of how their role connects to another, how it filters through the pipeline. Because you may have someone who just does A&R admin, and so they're collecting all of the metadata, but they may not understand how having this metadata correct is how everyone gets paid. Like,
Yes.
to these songs for distribution and for collection agencies to be able to identify these sound recordings so that they can collect on them, and how just something as small as in marketing, they're spending money. This stuff has to be accounted for properly because it has to go on an artist statement, and it has a legal liability to it if it's incorrect.
Yes.
So it's like all of these things seem small to them, but in a grand scheme of things, it's a big issue once it gets to the back office.
That's right.
So, I'm trying to pour into them, a lot of them, so that they understand how, even though it may not seem as a big of a role on the back end, this is a huge role. This is why this has to be important. This is why you have to pay really close attention to this. This is the reason why you have to make sure you double, triple check behind yourself. That's why you have to make sure you have proper documentation for everything that you do. It's just a lot of different things, just trying to pour into them and teach them how these things all trickle back up in the grand scheme of it. So, like right now, I'm going to start trying to externally advocate more. That's why you see me producing a lot more content, because now, like I said, I feel a lot more comfortable and confident in myself to be able to do that. Because sometimes, you may feel like, what if I don't know something, or what if
second guessing yourself,
but like it, or it's like you got to get that out of your head and just take those leaps of faith.
Yes. Oh, that is such a word.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you, because I feel like I've learned a lot from this episode. First of all, I just love to see that there's more of us,
Yeah.
There's more of us supporting each other, actually knowing what the business is and wanting to share that information. So tell us a little bit about what we can expect from Chlon in the future. What excites you at the moment that you're working on?
So right now, I'm super excited about this audio album that I'm dropping.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I'm also working on a music academy. And so I've already done all of the modules. Everything is completed. I've recorded the full audio album. So right now I'm working on like the content and the rollout and everything. And so I'm super excited about that, because this is the beginning of a launch of me launching of my product line. I'm going to continue to do more audio albums, album style, that where may it be like 5 tracks that are dedicated to just marketing only, or may it just be 1 track that's dedicated to playlisting and sales, whatever the case may be. I'm going to continue to do that. And so I'm just super, super excited about that. Like, out of this world. I'm so excited.
Excited too. I'm hoping that we can do some kind of partnership, because I launched a nonprofit organization called Juke Joint Foundation to provide resources for women of color in the music business and aspiring music business professionals as well. So I think it would be a great opportunity for them to tap into some of that coursework, or even the album that you'll be releasing.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I'm so excited about it. Like, and then it's like I have this, my campaign is about like, the campaign is called I Got the Juice, right? And so it is like the counter to the tea. So it's almost like, get you more friends. Stop hanging around everybody who got the tea and get you more friends who got the juice. What I mean? And so
I love it.
The concept of the campaign is going to roll out like that. So I'll start like releasing little stuff, but people are not going to get it yet until I roll out the campaign. But I'm just throwing like little pieces of content and little like phrases that reference that stuff. And so people will see later like what it's connected to.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited for you. And I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity to have this conversation. I think it's just very enlightening. And I can't wait to see what happens in the future. And thanks so much
Thank
for being
you
on
for
the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved having this conversation with you as well. And also many blessings to you, girl, and what you're doing, because
Thank you.
you putting it up too now.
We
I
trying. We just out here
I see you.
enterprising,
I see you.
you know,
Building out a
iron's not
whole
the
entire
iron out here.
you're building out a whole entire division, in a company. Because we started with Empire. Like, we were Empire's first big client. Like, Think It's the
Oh
Game
yeah.
record. Yeah, so we were working with Empire. Like, when we got that first deal with Def Jam with Trinidad James, we were working with Empire. And
Wow.
so we've seen Empire grow and flourish as well. So I think that it's amazing that you're a part of that and you're building out the entire publishing division. And for me, someone who understands publishing, I
Yes.
need a lot of work.
Yes. Yes.
It's
But it's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving, because there
it is
aren't so many people in publishing. So just having that knowledge and expertise push you in a different lane, and having, worked with tech teams along the way gives me a little bit more of that carte blanche to build and design the structure. So that's a lot of fun. It's legacy for them, but in general, I just see us out here as moguls doing our thing as well.
for
Sisters out
sure.
here shining, you know what I mean? I'm loving it. So I appreciate you, and welcome back anytime.
Thank you. All you gotta do is call me.
You already know. Have a good one.
You too.
Remember, stay positive, inspired, and true to yourself. Go out there and kill it. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Pub Royalty Queen Podcast.